Welcome to this section. Now this is an area that I am qualified. There are, if you like, there's two, maybe three that I feel that I'm qualified and in a good place, and I feel very congruent about talking about, because I am qualified. If you want to check out my qualifications, you can go to my website and check out all of the qualifications if that's what satisfies you or turns you on or whatever. So the next toxicity that we're going to talk about is one that I could talk about for many hours, and I have done on this particular channel, and something that is actually part of me and my lifestyle and my work, and has been for quite a long time, and that is emotional and psychological toxicity. I'm going to keep this short, but the reason why I keep looking down here is because I've got lots of notes. So the toxicity to do with emotions and psychological, again, they're from inside, and it's been proven again, and I will keep saying this, please do your own research. It's not difficult to do. There's an awful lot of research out there that's been done about the emotional toxicity and the effects that has on a person, and also the psychological effects as well. And of course, when I said earlier on about the body being the mind, if we don't look after the body, it affects the mind. It's been proven time and time again that this has an effect. What we eat, what we take in, not only physically, but also through our ears and through our eyes, what we watch on TV, what we choose to listen to on the radio, what we choose to read in the newspapers, what we choose to watch in the way of films and entertainment, etc., all have an emotional and psychological effect on us at some level. No doubt about it. Otherwise I wouldn't be in business. It's as simple as that. And neither would a lot of psychologists and psychiatrists and such like around the world. Any form of therapist will tell you that the toxicity of mental and emotional states has an effect on people at a physical level, because the communication works both ways. What we put into our body affects our mind. What we allow into our mind affects our body. And so it's a two-way system. It's not rocket science to see this. So toxicity at this particular level is quite key, because it can have very damaging effects throughout the whole life cycle, our time on Earth. And so, my training in psychology, we got taught there were 5 levels of, from birth to the ages of 5 to 6, whereby at whatever stage a child was developing at a psychological level, if they stopped developing either emotionally or psychologically at that particular level, they were kind of stuck in that level for the rest of their life. And part of the analysis process, if you don't want to believe me about any of this stuff, do your own research. But I can look at a grown adult and tell, because I've been trained to do so, I can tell at what stage of development they stopped or had a traumatic event that stopped them developing emotionally and psychologically in their childhood. It's been proven time and time again that can happen, that is possible. And so if a person goes through their whole life wondering why something is not happening for them, why they have emotional issues in relationships, for instance, or with other people, why they have authoritative issues, why is it they get upset, why is it they don't get upset over certain things, why is it that things trigger an emotional response in them, and it can have a health, knock-on effect, both mentally and physically. It's, again, very important that I think, one of my tasks is to help people to understand that this has an effect. It's another layer of toxicity. Apart from the other things that we've just been through, the other four, this is just another layer upon which people can damage their immune system, their health, their thought processes, their relationships. Everything that's going on around them is affected at this particular level as well, of emotion and the psychology. So again, in my opinion, it's very, very important that, let me give you an example. It's important that people become aware, and becoming aware of a situation. So I have a client that will come to me and they say, every time I want to approach somebody about going into a relationship or having a relationship with someone, this happens, and it destroys the relationship, and then they get upset and they have an effect and they start feeling maybe depressed, and they go through a cycle of, maybe that triggers a habit, a dependency on drugs maybe, or drink or something along those lines, and there's this sort of vicious cycle of things that go along, and then for whatever reason they realize that that's happening, but then they go through the cycle again. Okay, they go through that cycle all over again, and I've experienced it myself. If anyone knows me and wants to listen to this story that I had with going through this repeat process, and it took me years to figure out what was going on, and it wasn't until I actually, a long time ago, pre me becoming interested in psychology at professional level, and psychotherapy at a professional level, it wasn't until I actually went to a therapist myself and was taken through a process of accepting. Number one, accept that it's happening to you. Become aware that what you are going through is of your own creation. That is a huge step for a lot of people. And that is really the first step to becoming aware of how this toxicity is affecting you, and how it affects you throughout your life, and how it affects you mentally, and how it affects you physically. Which, again, going back to all the other toxicities, eventually will have a layered effect on your immune system and on your health in general. And so that's where this level comes from. Now, again, we have to look at the environment. Is this something that you are creating? Is this something that is being imposed upon you? Is somebody in an abusive relationship where, external influences are creating the emotional response or the psychological response that is damaging somebody's health? And they're the things, and how is that having an effect on their body? Listen to what your body is saying. Listen to the effects it's having. What is it that can be done to manage it? What can be done to control it? And I guess the extreme case is what can be done to take a person, you, anyone else, out of that environment into a completely different environment where they have a lot more control, they have a lot more choices, and they have a lot more control about the levels of toxicity that can, that are having an effect on their mental health and their physical health. It's a complicated area. It's sometimes a very grey area, and it can only really happen if you or the person that you're trying to help wants it to change. That's the thing. It's not going to work by just talking to somebody and trying to make them aware of it if the desire to change and control the toxicity at this particular level, the emotional and psychological level, If the drive is not there, then it's not going to happen. It's quite simple, really. And I see it day in, day out. And I come across it a lot, that switch where somebody realizes that they can actually do something, or that they become aware that that is what's happening to them. That's usually enough to make the change, to kind of change, if you like, the map of the world, their map of the world, and change the direction that they want to go in. It's their choice. It's your choice. Again, I will keep continuing to say, do your own research. There's enough evidence out there about all of these levels of toxicity and the effect that they have on our life and our mental health and our psychology. So let's move on to the next one.